Hey, guys. Welcome to the Love Experience Show. I am your host, Ashley J. And I'm really excited about today because I have a special guest, one of my cousins. He's my older cousin, Cousin Donald. He would like to share his experience with his marriage. As you can see, the title of today's show is 26 Years of Marriage. And he wants to tell us about how they met and how they were able to make it to 26 years. Okay. So, hey, Cousin Donald.
Aloha, Ashley J. How are you doing?
Good. I need you to turn your camera on because we can't see you.
Okay, get fancy here. Are we good?
Yep, I can see
All
you
right.
now. All right, so welcome to my show. And you can go ahead and kick it off if you like.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And as you were saying, I have been married this June 24th. I make sure I have the right date. June 24th was my 26th wedding anniversary. I met my wife in Honolulu. I had just come back from, well, in April of 1988, I was in New York. I did a Guinness Book World Record using a book of mine on health and nutrition. And
Okay.
at the end of that record, I said to my audience, this is it for me. My goal was 3 world records, and I believe that I've hit that mark. Who knows? I may go back to Hawaii and get married. And another cousin who was in the audience, Dot Arnold, she jumped up and gave me a big hug. I said that on April 3rd of 1988. And when I came back to Hawaii, I was living on the Big Island, but I was looking for a better job in the mental health field. And in
Okay.
August of that same year, I took a job in Honolulu and moved over to that island. And that was the first day I met the woman that wound up becoming my wife. So
Wow.
I kind of like predicted. I said, I said, yeah, I made that was it for me. When you see people that are involved in things, even bodybuilding or Olympics or so on, very often they're going to be single because you
Mm,
have to be married to that particular event in order to be very good at it, to be a world record holder in it, to be an Olympic champion. You really have to be married to that event. And you'll
mm-hmm.
notice that many people in those sort of endeavors, they'll wait until after all of that goes on before they think about any kind of real serious relationship.
That's
And
true.
so she and I, as I say, she and I met on the job. Her name is Pamela. And we dated for a number of years. As a matter of fact, I met her in 88. We didn't get married until 94, 95, 95. I got engaged in 94. And, she always says to me that even she told a girlfriend of hers being married to me was like being married to her best friend.
Oh,
So I
wow.
always kind of I feel good about that because I've never been the type of person that tried to push anything on anyone. You have to whatever you're into, you be yourself.
Right.
Uh, for a relationship to work, both people have to grow, but they have to grow as individuals, but also work together as a group. And
Right.
that's what she and I have been able to do. As you and I were discussing, you have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and once she got married, she also went back to school and she also has her master's in marriage and family therapy.
That's the way to go. If you want
Yeah.
to help people. One thing I wanted to ask you, how long were you in Hawaii before you came back to the mainland?
Well, I moved to Hawaii in 1981.
Okay.
And the first time I came back was, I want to say 83, 84. My mother was still living in Brooklyn. And then shortly afterwards, she moved to New Jersey. And I used to come back to New York about every other year during the time that she was living either in Brooklyn or in New Jersey.
Okay.
Around 2003, she was diagnosed with non Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I brought her here to the Big Island to live with me. And so, as my wife brought up to me, we went to a family reunion, I think in 2010. I think that's the last time I've been back to the East Coast.
Okay. Okay. So, well, one thing I need you to do, there's a block kind of almost in the middle of your face. All right. I can see you now.
One second. Oh, come on. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So you come back and forth, and when in that period, when did Aunt Rose meet Pam?
Oh, well, actually, I want to say around 1990, my
Okay.
mother, and I call her my second mother. She's known me since I was about 6 years old. They both came out to Hawaii. So the first time she met Pam was in 1990.
Okay. Okay. And were you nervous about them meeting?
No, my mother was always very practical, down to earth, and she would say to me, "Well, if you like her, I like her, because you're the one that have to be with her, not me." So,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
it was never about, well, why are you with my son or anything like that. At no time in my dating, be it when I lived with my mother, I lived with my mother until I moved to Hawaii, um, again back in 1981. So it
Okay.
was never an issue of, well, who is she or what is that. It's like you said, they said, if you with her, if you like her, I like her, because you're the one that have to be with her, not me. That was her saying.
That's very Aunt Rose.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I miss her so much. So, okay, so you guys were engaged for a year before you got married.
Yes,
And I remember Aunt Linda and my mom coming down to, or not coming down, but going to Hawaii for your wedding.
yes.
What was it like going from being single, predicting that the next time you went back to Hawaii, you were going to find your wife, and meet your wife, and get married? How was all of that transition for you?
Well, as I was saying, once I had completed my goal, I wanted 3 world records. And once I had completed that goal, I wasn't necessarily looking to get married per se, as much as I was looking to change my lifestyle to some degree. And so, um, to be honest with you, the woman that I married is the record holder in my world. She's the legitimate champion of everything that I'm talking about these days. She proved over a period of time to be my closest friend and my greatest support. And just like my mother was my closest friend and my greatest support, I had no reason not to want to be with someone like that.
Right.
So it really wasn't. It was no sacrifice. If anything, I was the beneficiary of everything that she had to offer. I always talk about the fact, hey, I am a guy from a dead end street in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, and here she is, a girl from the North Shore of Oahu. Uh, our lifestyles couldn't be any more different.
Okay.
Just and whereas I'm somebody who, just by the nature of being a dead end kid, I'm always looking over my shoulder. She's the type grow up in a situation where they could keep the doors open, didn't have locks on the door.
Okay.
So I even said to a good buddy of mine that I said in some degrees, before she had a degree, I said I'm marrying my therapist. And I'm marrying my therapist in the sense that she doesn't have the scars and the bumps and bruises that I have.
Right.
And to be with someone like that was very therapeutic, because it allowed me to kind of see what I needed the scar tissue that I need to heal.
What was that like?
An adjustment is an adjustment, because, again, it's like, if you used to the rat race of New York and the mentality of New York, to live with somebody who is growing up in a tropical island, and her family wasn't rich, but her family was always very supportive of her financially, et cetera, et cetera. She just looks at the world differently, because she could look at the world differently.
Right.
And to look at the world in a way that you don't have to always fight or claw your way through, but that there's other ways that you can acquire things or whatever. It was just very therapeutic. I mean, that's the word that I'll always use. It was very therapeutic to be with someone who didn't have the scars and the bumps and the bruises on them that I had on me.
sometimes when we come from um, different backgrounds, they're not all the time, but you some people will clash. Did
Sure.
Were there times when you guys, because your backgrounds were so different, were there times when you guys kind of bumped heads because you didn't just purely understand each other?
In 26 years of marriage, the biggest argument she had is I burnt one of her pots. And I got so sick of hearing her complain about it, I went out that night and bought another pot.
Okay. But that's good. I mean, because a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Sure. Well, see, here's the thing, though, is that we met on the job. And so both of our backgrounds was in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So the same clients that she had was the clients that I had. You know, to this day, she works in the mental health field. So when she comes home and talks about someone with personality disorder or schizophrenia or depression, I might have even represented that person at some point. So
Okay.
our professional background was the same. and and I always used to laugh, and I used to say, you know, people in the mental health field, if they took their own advice, they'd be some of the most together people in the world. You
Yes.
know, they have, you have a whole lot of advice for other people, but do you apply it to yourself? And so the
No.
fact that she and I came from a mental health background and we grew in the mental health field together. From that first job where she and I met, I went on to be a director of mental health services. She went on to be a supervisor in a mental health program. So we both grew professionally in the field of mental health. And at least from an intellectual standpoint, we knew all of the different coping skills and communication skills that you needed to have to make any sort of relationship work. We met in a mental health program that was referred to as psychosocial rehabilitation.
Okay.
And that whole concept of psychosocial rehabilitation is all about learning how to communicate with other people. So
Right.
by applying the things that we were doing professionally, it helped us personally.
Right. Um, well, that's great because I mean, I know there's things that I do in my marriage with my husband, but he'll go along with it because he knows, that I kind of know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, you know, he still he doesn't know because he's not in that field. So that's
Right.
good that you guys were able to kind of make that I don't want to say that switch, but carry that over into your marriage.
Yeah, well, even the relationship, because as I said, you know, we met in the field of
Right.
psychosocial rehabilitation and the idea of learn better social skills. You know,
Right.
part of what we were teaching other people was social skills to communicate. You know, in a marriage, you never assume. I always used to say I say to people, I understand the language of wife. And the language of wife is half of it she thinks and half of it she talks. And the husband has to put what she was thinking.
Honey, are you paying attention? Because he just gave you some gems.
You gotta put what she was thinking along with what she just said and kind of make it fit together. But you know, that's part of the relationship.
It is. It is. And even being therapists, you're always thinking, it's a little hard to turn your brain off
Right.
when you're at home, especially say now you guys didn't have these issues, but if it's someone who, you know, you you and your spouse or your significant other, whoever, you guys do bump heads a lot, you're always thinking and for a way to kind of make smooth things out.
Right.
So that's a really great thing that you guys, have the connection of the mental health field. So you could go ahead and finish tell us whatever else you want to share with us about your marriage or your relationship.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things with our marriage, and I know she remembers all of them more so than I do, but in the 26 years of marriage, I think we moved at least about six times,
Okay.
6 or 7 times, and not only moved from different homes on the island of Oahu, but even when we moved over here to the Big Island, this is our second move. Now we own this home, but we
Okay.
never owned a home prior to that. And so I know one of the things that probably the worst time in any of our marriages is when we have to move. She hates moving. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things she said. She said, I'm so glad we have our own house so I don't ever have to move again if I don't want to. So it's one of those things where we every move was an improvement.
Right.
And it was an agreement. So it's like anything else. We knew other people. One day we were working on the job and this lady was married to she was married, and one day she said the husband came home and he bought this red Mercedes. And it's like she didn't know anything about it. And I always remember I just said to Pam before she left the house this morning, oh, I have to go to the store and buy some fertilizer. Do we have the money?
Right.
She said, is it $100 fertilizer? I said, no. I said, but the point is that when you're working with your partner, you try to communicate things so that you keep things in there's no resentment because you did something without at least letting them know, and then you put them in a bind where they have to kind of make all kinds of changes because you didn't just communicate what you wanted to say. It's not a question of asking permission as much as it's communicating so that everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree because we can get caught up with running things by our spouses and feeling like you have to ask permission when it's just being open and having open communication with them so that everybody is on the same playing field.
Same page, especially when it comes to money. I mean,
Yeah.
as a marriage and family therapist, one of the big problems in any marriage would be money or infidelity. Well, and that money is sometimes even more so than the infidelity.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you're paying bills and you need to know, okay, well, can I buy that? Is that has that bill been paid, or am I going to get something that says you went overdraft or anything like that? So the more you keep the communication, the easier the relationship is. At least I found that to be the case.
And that's very true. I can say personally, I'm very open with my audience. I can say personally that it took me a while to understand that I wasn't asking my husband permission to do things, but I had to communicate with him about what we're able to do and what bills needed to be paid, what portion I needed to give. Like we had to talk about that. It took me a while to make that shift from just we're having open communication and thinking that I always have to ask him permission to do certain things.
Yes, I'm sorry, 1 second, so I
It's
can get
okay.
this off completely. All right, I thought I did. Yes, and that's the key. The idea. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Modern technology. Yeah, the key is just to make sure that people know what's going on. I mean, if you have credit cards, if you're sharing a credit card and you've gone out and you've bought something for $300 or whatever the case may be, then if I turn back around and buy something for $800, it's going to be over, or whatever the case may be. So the more you work together, the easier things can be. And again, it's not about asking permission as much as we're in a partnership.
Right.
And as my partner, I need to know that my partner is aware of what's going on. If it's a negotiation, I negotiated with these people that we're going to pay $100 for the yard, and you didn't talk to me, and you turned back around and went to somebody else, and they're going to charge $300 for that same thing. Well,
Yeah.
had we negotiated, I mean, had we spoken, that's Zoom, we would have been able to avoid that.
Right.
And that's a perfect example. Yeah, we're both in agreement we need to have the yard done, but I went out and talked to somebody and didn't tell you what I discussed, and then you went out on your own and talked to somebody and you got a better deal or a worse deal, but we
Mhm.
didn't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so true. Um, I had a question for you now. I lost my train of thought. So let's see. After the marriage, I mean after the wedding, um, w- like, so you guys had the tools to have a good marriage and have a partnership. But was it difficult to change the frame of mind of, okay, I'm not single anymore. This is my wife, and I have, these duties that I need to do to take care of her, and anything like that.
Well, I I kind of laugh at myself in the sense that I won't say an idealized way. I can say to you, I'll be 68 years old in September.
Okay.
I've had the same friend since I was 6. So the idea of having a friendship or working with someone for a long period of time, he even came out to Hawaii with me for the first 3 months or so. And of course, his name would be Ronald. And it's
Okay.
his mother that's my second mother. And as a matter of fact, God bless her, she's 99 years old.
Wow.
Uh, and so I've had a friend for 60 years. And I'm still trying to remember how many times we've ever had an argument. So I'm not the kind, as much as I talk, I'm not the kind of guy that would argue. I'm the kind of guy that always tries to be upfront and discuss whatever's going on at that time. I try not to let things simmer and boil. If it's something that I feel, I try to get it out and say it right then and there, and be diplomatic about saying it,
Mm-hmm.
so that so this way, it's just as much a question of how you say something as what you say.
Right.
And the idea that if there's something to be said, if there's a goal or something, that, again, I'm very goal oriented. So if there's something that the wife and I wanted to do, we worked on buying this house for a number of years. And we went to several places and looked at different places. And we were on agreement when we saw this place that this was the place that we were going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't so much a question of, okay, now I'm single, or I'm no longer single, I have to change, as much as it was, now I'm ready to go into a partnership. And this is what a partner, be it business, marriage, be it on a baseball team, this is what you have to do. If you're going to be on a team, this is how you have to be a team player. I'm an only child, but I have a very strong sense of teamwork.
Okay.
I went for a job one time, and the guy looked at my resume and said, "Why would you want to be on this job?" And I looked at him and I said, "Michael Jordan plays on a team. Okay, I don't care how good he is, he plays on a team. He doesn't play
Right.
by himself. So regardless of my skills, regardless of what I may bring into any job or situation, I'm very much a team player, and I want the team to win. If the team wins, I win." And that's the way I've always looked at it, just even in terms of our marriage. If anything that whatever I achieve, my marriage achieves.
Right. Right. So how being the only child, how did you develop that type of mentality?
Rosa Thomas. If anything that you want to compliment me about, that's the lady that is responsible for making me or showing me just how to go about doing it. I
Okay.
always say, yeah, if I can say to you, when she passed away, I had a memorial for her, and I made the statement. I said she leaves behind no investment in precious metals, but her name was sterling. She had no stocks and bonds, but her word was her bond. And the investment that she made in me through good counsel, love, and faith in God has proven to be more valuable to me than any amount of money I could ever receive. So it's Rosa Thomas that I give the credit to.
She what you said at the memorial, that, I mean, well, because she was your mother, but it just resonates with me because, as we're talking, I'm having these memories of being, over at Aunt Rose's house, and uh just being in her company and in her care, and we always had a great time
Mhm.
being with her. But that's the only thing I keep thinking about.
Many people, and many young women and men over the years have mentioned that they always recognize just how much of a support my mother was to me, and how much good advice, excuse me, how much good advice she gave to them.
Yeah, she really did. Okay. So you can, you can finish telling. I'll try not to interrupt you anymore. You can keep going.
No interruption. If you look over on my shoulder there, you'll see a book. It's called New Jump Swing: Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program. Uh, I hold 3 Guinness Book World Records in public speaking, and all 3 of those records were based upon books that I've written on the subject of health and nutrition. This book, New Jump Swing, is the revised and updated version of those world record speeches. One of the things that I was always emphasizing in my records was what is now referred to as minority health disparities. One of the reasons that African Americans and Native Americans had such high death rates from COVID-19 is because African Americans and Native Americans had high rates of what is referred to as comorbidity factors. Those comorbidity factors: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity. And so, with those factors, along with getting that COVID-19, that's what made it so devastating to the Black community and other communities. Every Guinness Book World Record that I did in Harlem. Of all the people to stand on any corner of 125th Street and give a speech, I'm in the Guinness Book of Records for doing it. And once again, all of those records were designed to bring attention to the health crisis that I recognize that people of color had for many, many years. One of the things about COVID-19 is that it did bring up the reality of higher rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, etc., among people of color. For the last 10 years, or between 2009 and 2019, I was a disability advocate, Social Security disability advocate for the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii. And even though I wasn't representing that many African Americans have one of the highest rates of disability. And so I always say to people, I say, don't work all your life just to wind up giving the money to the doctor and the pharmacist. Now is the time to really take care of yourself. It's not about going to the refrigerator and throwing everything out, but it's definitely about take as good a care of yourself as you take of your car. If you wake up every morning and you turn on the ignition in your car and you hear rattling, how long is it before you're going to take it into the shop? How many people wake up every morning and before they can talk good, they're coughing and rattling in their chests, but they're not doing anything about it? Right. Any illness that you have, if you jump on it in its early stages, something can be done to help it. But unfortunately, they know this about poor people, and in part because of no insurance. But we have a tendency to let things go and go and go until it gets us to the point that we can't go anymore. Then we go to the doctor. And by then, the thing has become advanced. So I always say to people, take care of yourself, love yourself, and realize that what you've been doing for years, you may not undo overnight, but start and take it step by step, and you will see an improvement.
That's true. I can, for myself, my husband, when I first, I guess, got sick in 2016, there were little things that was happening to me before I went to the doctor, and by the time I went to the hospital, actually, I was I had serious difficulty with walking. And my husband, anytime after that where I would not feel well or whatever, he would be on me about, you need to go to the doctor. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the doctor. And he always says, it's better that you go now instead of going later, when they could say to you, well, we could have saved you if you came 2 months ago.
True. So. True. And as I said, in the case of many people, especially many people of color, we didn't have insurance. And so the doctor was something that was expensive. However, listen, if I said to people right now, I can get you $1,000 Coach bag for $500 if you meet me at 2:00 in the morning and we're going to take a bus, the bus will be full. Mm-hmm. So we can get the money for what we want. Right. And there should be nothing more important to you than your health and strength, because that's what you're going to take with you, hopefully, as long as you can. As I said, my good friend, his mother's 99 years old, so she's an inspiration to me.
That's great. So, what advice would you give anyone who is getting ready to get married, or they might be newlyweds, or even seasoned veterans of marriage.
Well, yeah. The matter of fact, the longer you're in a marriage, the more you have to not take your partner for granted.
Mm,
Uh, Always, plain and simple. Are you happy? Are you happy today? Uh, how do you feel today? When they come home, how was your day? How are you feeling? If you're living with someone, just so you talked about your husband, if you're living with someone and you see that someone is not walking quite as straight as they used to, or they're favoring one side, you ask them about it. You have to be your partner. You look at your partner just like you would look at your child, in the sense that if you see your child is not eating, the first time they don't eat, something is not right. And so you always have to stay sensitive to your partner and never take your partner for granted. Always look to see that they're taking time for themselves. That's the big thing to talk about my mother. I used to get on my mother and I say, "Ma, go out."
yeah.
Go out. You don't have to do everything. It's not, I'm an only child. So quite naturally, I used to say to people, when you're an only child, you get tired of hearing your name because that's the only name they can call. But, I, as a grown man, as a man before I was even married, to date other women, and these were women who were good mothers, but I could appreciate the sacrifices that my mother made for me, the dresses and the hats and the coats that she didn't buy, and the places she didn't go, so that I would be able to do the things that I did. And so for your marriage and for your relationship, you always have to stay sensitive to the needs of your partner, and know that they have a life too, and they don't always have to be right up under you. And it's not to be that it's bad that they're under you, but that they have the right to grow as individuals as well as grow in the relationship. So
Right.
encourage your partner to do things for themselves. If they like to draw, encourage them to go get some paper and pencils and so on and draw. Encourage them to have hobbies. When I talk about Donald Spider-Man Thomas, years ago, that was my nickname. And I became the executive director of a mental health program, and I was working 7 days a week. And one day I said to Pam, before we got married, I said, I got to get into a hobby or something. This is just work, work, work. And she said, "Well, what did you used to be into?" And I said, "Oh, I was used to be into comic books. My name used to be Spider-Man." And I came to the apartment one day, and underneath the door, there was a Spider-Man comic book. And so she's the one that got me back into comic book collecting. Today, I have a comic book store, an online comic book store. I was working with a good brother that, unfortunately, he had depression and he committed suicide, and he left me over 15,000 comic books. And I told him before he passed away, I said, "Well, at some point, I'll start a store." And so, again, even something like simple as a comic book, I used to read medical files day in and day out, day in and day out. And so when you're reading something that heavy, you need something light as a balance. And so
Mm,
you also have to think about that for your spouse. Even if it's just going to the park, you don't have to have big money. Go to the
mm,
park, go to the zoo, go someplace where you can just enjoy each other. And especially the summertime, enjoy the company of each other. That doesn't require big money, but it's the idea
mm.
of realizing that the two of you together, you're going to when I give a marriage, I say, "For as long as you both shall live." To say
Right.
"till death do you part" is so morbid. uh,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
idea that for as long as you both shall live, you're going to live together. So enjoy each other, and part of enjoying each other is to support each other in whatever endeavors they're into. For many years, Pam was into hula. She even went to Japan with her hula group and so on. And so
Okay.
I went out and I got a video camera to tape her when she would do the performances for the hula and so on. And as I said, I gave jump rope demonstrations, and there she was. And then once in a while, I get her to come out into the audience and jump with me. But the idea, the idea is to support one another and never take each other for granted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Now my next question uh is only because I don't recall this, but um I don't recall Aunt Rose ever being married for as long as I was around her. So what male influences did you have that helped you become a husband?
Oh, okay. That's a loaded question. Well, my mother
Uh-oh.
was
Okay.
married for 18 years. She was married to Jeffrey Thomas, but my
Okay.
father was a recovering alcoholic and he would miss work at least 3 or 4 months out of every year. We had a finished basement and he would go down there in alcoholism. He would go into what they call benders. And so
Mm,
that's probably the reason why you don't remember ever seeing her with a husband is because
okay.
very often either he was drunk or drying out.
Okay.
Uh, but if people go to the first Shaft movie, when Shaft comes at the very beginning of the movie, when he comes out of the subway and goes into a shoe shop, my father was the manager for that shoe shop on 42nd Street.
Oh
When he
wow.
was not when he was not in a bender, my father was not only a shoe repairman but a shoemaker. He even went to school to make the orthopedic shoes for people that had one leg shorter than the other. So I try to always focus on the positive, and so I had respect for the fact that when he wasn't on those benders, he had skills and he had very good skills. But I saw how that alcohol destroyed his marriage and destroyed what he could have had because my mother was willing, when we bought a house on Amboy Street, she was willing to find a place that had a store that he could have opened up his own shoe repair store, but
Mm,
he wasn't ready for that. So on one hand, I can say to you, when we had the house on Amboy Street, it was Joe Hilton, my mother's brother, Joseph Freisen, a cousin, and Joseph McCrae, another cousin. So there was three Joes. And at the time that I would say maybe a child and even my early teens, all three of those men served as examples to me.
okay.
Uh, and so that was a very good lesson for me. So I always had role models. When I got to be about 16, I studied martial arts under Master Cleophas Jacobs. And while I had bad knees and couldn't stay in it as long as I wanted to, he was a very positive influence to me. Dr. John Moore, this was a man that had 4 years of formal education, but he could take you to any park and tell you every root, every leaf, every seed, what you could use the bark for. Even though he had a limited amount of education, he was able to build himself up. And so these were the sort of men that it gave me examples of just what you could do with your life, regardless of where you started from, and what you could do if you were committed to getting your life together, getting yourself together. So, and of course, men in history. Malcolm X is a great example. Dr. King is a great example. So I had many men that I pulled from. So as they say, I got one from column B and one from column A and one from column C, and I got a little bit of things from different people.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. I didn't want that question to sound um I just didn't know because
Well,
my
no,
time when I rose, it
you
was
you wouldn't
always
have known.
just
You
her.
wouldn't have known. No, you wouldn't have known because they broke up. My mother and father broke up. I want to say I was in probably the eighth or ninth grade because
Okay.
when they broke up, my mother, myself, and Joseph Freisen, one of those Joes, we moved to Wilmore Street, still in Brownsville. And
Okay.
Joseph Freisen and I, we shared a room together. And to make you laugh, he and I used to sound alike on the phone. And when women would call him, and I picked up the phone, they thought they were talking to me. So I also learned how to talk to women.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Okay.
true story.
That is
and he was someone who was into dressing well, and this goes back into health. As much as he was into someone who was dressing well, he also had bad teeth. And my mother
mm,
used to get on him about getting those teeth. He said, "I don't know how any woman kiss you with them bad teeth." Okay, and so the point was that along with uh, I don't care how much you're going to put on outside, you still need to take care of your health. And
right.
Joseph Freisen passed away from, I want to say, pneumonia or tuberculosis at a relatively young age.
Mm,
And so that's another example of taking care of yourself in terms of being a man. To take care of yourself is the most important thing. If you want to look good, take care of yourself.
mm-hmm. That's good. Guys, if you have any questions or comments for us, go ahead and get them in the comments now, in the comment section now. Okay. So we have a few more minutes and I want to give everybody a chance if they want to say anything else. We have a few comments. Um, but My mom said Joe was sharp with bad teeth.
What happened?
My mother commented Joe was sharp with bad teeth.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You know, and I mean, again, he could buy a car, so you can't say, "Well, I don't have the money to get my teeth fixed." It's
Mm.
what you put your priorities into.
Yeah, I honestly, teeth have always been a really big thing to me. And I always feel like, it didn't make sense. And I mean, you agree with this also. It doesn't make sense if you look good, you have yourself together, but then you smile and you have like 10 teeth missing or whatever the case may be. It doesn't make sense to me.
You have some people who literally walk around like this when they talk because they're
Yeah.
embarrassed with their teeth. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yep. Um, so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. What's the one thing that you learned in your 26 years of marriage?
Don't take your partner's feelings for granted,
Okay.
and always be willing to sit down and ask them about how they feel about the marriage, how they
Mm-hmm.
feel about the relationship. You don't have to say, "Is there anything I'm doing wrong?" As much as don't take don't take anything for granted. Just don't assume that everything is all right, but be open enough to ask questions and see how they're doing and see how they feel. And not only about the relationship, but how they feel about themselves, because how they feel about themselves is going to impact the relationship. You know, your partner could be in pain from hip pain. A good college friend of mine, he had hip replacement surgery, and he said, he was a trip to be around in his marriage until he got that hip replacement, because he's in pain. When you're in pain, you're miserable,
You
and if you're
are.
miserable as an individual, that's going to affect anybody that you're around.
Yeah.
So, never take the feelings of your partner for granted. Ask them how they're doing and see how they're doing, and be observant. You don't even have to ask sometimes. Be observant and see if they're doing things differently. If they, you know, a few days ago, Pam had a little bout with gout, and she said at one point it hurt her to comb her hair. And I can look at her some days, and if she's not walking straight, I would say, how you doing? And she may not say anything until I say something. Then she said, "Oh, my knee was bothering me a little bit, or seemed like that gout affected my ankle today," or something like that. So, always be observant to your partner.
Yeah, that's really great advice. It's really, really great advice. And, basically you're just telling people to be in tune with
Be
each
in
other.
tune.
Be in
Be
tune
in
with
tune
each
with
other.
yourself and with your partner and with your surroundings.
Right. Because you never know when you might say something and that could possibly save your partner's life. You never know.
You
You
never
never,
know.
never know.
You never know. Yeah. Yeah. And always let your partner know that you care.
Yes.
It's not just, you just don't assume, okay, we're married, so you care. No, let them know you care.
Yes. Absolutely. Because
Go ahead.
the day to day will prevent you from thinking automatically that, oh, my partner cares. And what I mean by that is, you get caught up with life
Right.
and things just happen. So
Right.
it's good to say to your partner every once in a while, hey, I'm thinking about you, or, you know, I care about you, I love you. Whatever you don't say on a regular, it's good to say it often. I don't want to
Right.
say periodically. It's good to say it often
That's
so
right.
that they can feel the love that you feel.
Exactly. Going back to Rosa Thomas, she wasn't big into presents, but she believed in cards. And
Yeah.
so that's another thing that there's not a holiday that goes by that I don't give Pam a card. I give a card from her, I give a card from the dogs. You name it, be it New Year's, Valentine, birthday, whatever. I always have cards.
That's good.
Yeah.
So the couple of comments we have, let's see. Aunt Linda said hi.
Oh wow.
Um, my Aunt Ida's and Colleen, they said hello.
Hello.
Um, My mother said that Aunt Rosa was your cheerleader, and she
Yes,
was
that's
the
that's
mayor
her word, and she's right about that. Yes, she was.
and she was the mayor of Burlington.
All right.
Um, she also said that Joe brought her first pair of jeans.
Okay. Which Joe? Which Joe?
Which Joe, mommy? I think she was talking about the Joe with bad teeth. I don't want to keep saying that, but I think she was talking about him.
Joe Frison. Okay.
Ida said, "Amen. That's the way to turn the negative into a positive." I'm not sure what she was saying about that, but let's see. That's it. Nobody else has anything to say. If you guys don't have anything else for us, please, you got a couple minutes, so go ahead and let us know if you have anything else. Okay. Um, but I really appreciate you for being on with me, cousin Donald. And I'm so glad that you shared your wisdom with us about how you have made well, not just you, how you two have made your marriage last for 26 years and 26 more, however much longer God sees fit.
Amen to that. Yeah, and as I say, it kind of went by. Even she and I both commented and said, "Gee, never thought it would be this quick that we would wind up being married this long." And
Right.
it excuse me, it just it's day by day, but it's growth. I think that's
Yeah.
really the thing. It's growth. I can look out my window and I can see two avocado trees that I planted when they were shorter than I am, and now they're over 40 feet high. So I
Wow.
mean, it's all about steady growth. And just like those trees, you have to water them, you have to prune them, you have to, clean up the leaves around them. So you just don't get married and think that's all there is to it. You have to work on your marriage. You have to
Yes.
work on your relationship. It's not just an overnight thing, or it's not just going to be okay. Now we're married, everything is going to be gravy. No, you have to work at it. You definitely have to work at it. And it doesn't matter about the money. I mean, you look at the movie stars, they got all the money in the world. They don't stay married that long. You look
They're
at people
married
that
for
could be
two
in
seconds.
poverty and married and have 5 and 6 kids, and all of those kids turn out to be solid citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really about just working at it.
It is. And I like to say to people that marriage is not a magic pill, is there's no magic wand. Once you get married, things don't just automatically change. You have to work. Like you said, you have to work to make things better and to keep you guys glued together.
Right, right, right. And that's when people drift apart, is when they stop communicating and they just start assuming this about the other partner and not really communicating those same things. Whatever you feel, as I say, you can be diplomatic about it, but bring it up.
Right.
If something happened that you didn't like, or somebody, if your partner said something to you and you didn't like it, let them know you didn't like it the way they said it. Now
Right.
maybe they'll come back and say, well, I didn't mean to insult you when I said it like that. Maybe I was a little too blunt. Sometimes the truth can hurt only because you can say it very bluntly, and you
Yes.
figure because it's your partner, you can just say it anyway. And it's one of the things I said to Pam many years ago. She works with people with mental illness, and so she has to really be careful how she says things. And
Yeah.
one time she said something to me, and I said, "You wouldn't say it like that to one of your clients." Okay.
Wow.
And so the idea is that, hey, listen, you're working with people with mental illness for 8 hours a day. You come home, you can let your guard down, but you came back home to your partner. So you have to still be as considerate to your partner as you are to those people.
Mm-hmm.
You could work in sales. If you work in sales, you have to be very nice to all the customers. You come home, you can kind of just let it all hang out, but then you might be insulting to your partner. So you
Right.
still have to think about that.
You do. Absolutely. All right, guys. If you don't have anything else for us, then you know what's coming next. Um, if you would like to be part of the Love Experience show, please let me know. Send me an email, comment on this video, whatever you need to do to get in touch with me. Let me know if you want to be a guest on the Love Experience show. And I only have one question left for you. What is your love experience? We'll chat again later, guys. Bye.
Aloha.